I'm Glenn McGinnis, and welcome to Outburst. This week, seeking asylum in Canada.
Under 50,000 people in the span of like a year isn't that many.
Canada is a wonderful place in this world, and people are seeking our borders for safety.
I just don't like what they provide to them, as opposed to what they're giving to our own citizens.
It's getting Canada and the US a little bit into hot water with each other. Obviously, with Canada, we're so welcoming to an extent.
It's an issue at the heart of what it means to be Canadian. Welcoming, multicultural, polite, safe, strong, and free. But an influx of asylum seekers crossing the border has become somewhat of a political lightning rod.
Canadian law applies.
We don't integrate 40,000 people well.
This whole process costs Canadians millions and millions of dollars.
We need the whole country to join together and face this challenge together.
And has voters wondering if the system is working as it should, what it means to our neighbors to the south, and if our borders remain secure. And cities wondering what it's all worth. So now, it's your turn. How open can and should Canada's borders be to asylum seekers?
Not very. They should go through legally, properly, and it should be a limit how many come in.
So the current system right now you think needs to be changed?
Well, the current system's abused all the time.
I don't think they should be that open. No, they should be restricted. Yes.
Why?
Control. They want to make sure that the right people come into Canada. Yeah.
Why not give people a chance? We have a huge country. All of us are immigrants here except for the First Nations people. So I don't have any problem with asylum seekers coming here.
For me, Canada is we always welcome immigrants. And I'm an immigrant too. But I know there should be a procedure that we should take. Being strict is probably the best way to do it, because we welcome people, but we make sure that it will not affect other people as well.
Now, obviously, there are people with a criminal background that ought not to be coming in, and we have to screen those people out. But in general, we are a country of immigrants, and for the most part, our immigrants are wonderful citizens.
We do need to help people. So that's a tough one for me. I feel there should be more criteria of allowing people in, not just really allowing everybody in.
Canada is a wonderful place in this world, and people are seeking our borders for safety and a good life, and I think that we should open our arms and welcome people.
So we shouldn't close them, we shouldn't change anything?
Not in my opinion.
Have you had a personal experience with an asylum seeker in Canada?
Yes, in my profession, I've worked with several families, and they're just seeking safety and a better place for their children.
I think they should be open. I mean, they're open for stuff, for meat, for vegetable fruits, and furniture. I think humans should be allowed to live where they want to.
It's a very complicated problem. I don't know how I would manage it if I were in the government, So I would say try to find a compromise, but I would not be like Trudeau. Everybody is allowed to come in. No, I would try to find a balance with our population as well.
You need to go by the book, so there's some rules in place, and you cannot stay here if you're not the criteria are there, and if you're not accepted in the program, you're going back to your country. So
we should try to get those people in, especially if they have expertise that we can use.
Well, for asylum seekers, wide open, because I think if someone's fleeing their country, they have a good reason. It's for their life, it's for their family, things like that. They should be able to find basic human dignity, find peace, find just safety. So wide open, because when we think about it, we all have been immigrants at some point. everybody, like, we're not from here, we're from Europe, from everywhere. So it's just more. I don't think it's a bad thing that we have more immigrants.
In Ontario, the personal and political tension around this issue remains high. CPAC contributor Molly Thomas lays out what's at stake.
I'm Molly Thomas in Toronto. Anyone that lives in the city knows that space is a massive issue. So what do you do
when thousands of asylum seekers are filling your city shelters?
Well, you have to build. And that's what Canada's largest city is doing right now. They're putting up 3 to 4 temporary structures to just fit that need. And these numbers are unprecedented. Let me just show you just how busy city shelters are right now. The city of Toronto says 45%, about half of all people living in shelters right now, are asylum seekers or refugee claimants. If you look at 2017, that number was just 25%. Take it back another year, we're talking about 11%. Put this on top of the fact that the city has more than 5,000 people already homeless trying to find a place to put their head. This is 701 Fleet Street. We are in downtown Toronto, and by November, this is going to be the spot where the city puts up its first temporary shelter. So you can see some of the chalk drawings that are already on the line all the way around. It gives you an idea of how big this structure is going to be. Now, when it's complete, it's going to house 100 people. Now, 100 people in this structure, basically on cots in a massive room. There's going to be 7 showers, about 14 toilets for all of the people that are living there. Of course, the structure will be connected to city services like water, heat, natural gas, and each of these structures is slated to cost $2.5 million. To say the city and province are upset would be a massive understatement. It has been a mad scramble the last few months to figure out where do these people live. We've had asylum seekers in college dormitories. We've also had more than 1,700 people living in hotels. But who foots that bill? There's been tense negotiations between all 3 levels of governments fighting over just that, and winter, of course, is coming. The federal government gave Toronto $11 million. The city says that is not enough. They actually are dealing with more than $64 million to recoup costs by the end of the year. The province puts that number at more than $200 million right now. And this problem shows no signs of slowing down. We are seeing more than 15 to 20 asylum seekers enter the system every single day.
Limited healthcare services are available to refugee claimants through federal programs or through provincial plans. But those with a precarious immigration status still struggle to find healthcare in Canada. Molly Thomas spoke to a doctor in Toronto who treats uninsured patients, and they discuss who she sees on the front lines and who falls through the cracks.
You know, we've seen numbers at the shelters, for example, in Toronto rise. We've seen more and more refugee claimants in those shelters. Are you seeing those same people walk through your doors here at the clinic?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's unclear whether there's been a general increase in the number of refugee claimants across the country, but we do know that we are seeing a little bit of an increase of people who are specifically leaving the US to come to Canada and make a refugee claim that may have otherwise made that claim in the US. So I've seen people like that who very clearly state that they feel that the US is not a safe place for them, and they felt that they had to come here to make their claim to be prevented from being sent back to a country where they would be in danger. We need to be thinking of expanding sanctuary cities to sanctuary provinces, and we need to be thinking about how people can access the healthcare they need regardless of their immigration status.
Do you also see people that you think are taking advantage of the system? Because you're frontline, right? You're seeing the services rolled out. I think that's a genuine concern for a lot of Canadians.
Yeah, I can understand how that's a concern, particularly if they're not in the service provision role. So it's really, again, easy, I think, for people that may stand to benefit from propagating that view. So if they, for example, certain politicians may want to suggest that people are coming here and taking advantage of the system. But that's not really something that we see on the ground. We see people that are desperate, they're coming, and also extremely resilient. But they are, if people are here, they've often journeyed far, and they've come for reasons that are completely understandable from a human perspective.
Between January and July of 2018, the RCMP have intercepted more than 12,000 people crossing into Canada from the US, mostly on foot, in between points of entry. 12,378 people in 8 months this year alone coming to Canada to seek protection. We want to know what you think about this. Is the US a safe place for refugees?
I just hear a lot of bad stuff on the news, and I just personally feel more safe in Canada.
I feel like it should be, but with like the Trump stuff and all that that's going on in the world, it's kind of hard to say with how people are reacting to what he's doing and how, how the policies he's bringing out and stuff. I mean, Canada's obviously will be the better option, but I feel like U.S. should be fine too.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously fleeing from somewhere, the legitimate ones anyways. They're fleeing from countries that are, in a state of war. So between the States and the U.S., they should at least have somewhere safe to stay. But if there's a reason they're leaving the States, yeah, it could be because of the current government that's down there and a huge backlog in the system. Not that our system is any better at the moment. From what I understand, it's pretty backed up as well. But I mean, yeah, if I had to choose between the two, I would choose Canada, but that's just me.
It kind of used to be, but the present stuff that's going on there, they're certainly not very welcome. Is it safe? No, they're not endangered, but they certainly get sent back to either to Mexico or where they came from, so it's not good for them. But is it safe? Yeah.
I do.
Why?
Well, first of all, they're not under any persecution. They will not be beaten or killed.
They had the parents and the children in jail, and they were in separate jails on top of that. So I'm like, wow, that doesn't make sense. We all know, if you went to school, we all know, or took psychology anyways, that separating children from their families just straight like that is not good psychologically. PTSD is now, I'm learning a lot more about PTSD, and it's a fact that it exists and it's real, and these children now could have it. The children are probably affected more than the parents, but I mean, it's not good that you're separating families like that, especially in a country that's as free as the U.S. as they say they are. It doesn't make sense, no.
Probably not with the current president.
But in what way do you think it wouldn't be safe?
Well, the comments and the law and regulation that is coming of it is obviously it's not very welcoming for anyone who's seeking a refugee or asylum seeking, So yeah, probably not. Probably things have changed a lot since the new government.
No, I don't think it's a safe place because beyond the official sanctions and harsh treatments that people may be receiving, the citizenry are also, much of them anyway, up in arms. And it pits American against American, those who are trying to defend them. So it's kind of an ugly situation.
Probably not. I guess with the latest, I don't know, I don't know a lot about it, but from what I've heard from Trump and administration and things, doesn't look like it's a nice place to be right now for the future.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you're from Belgium. Do you think Canada would appeal to you to be a better place than the U.S.?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And why?
I guess there's much more of an image that it's open and you won't be rejected. They have an open image about welcome and go ahead. We'll try to help you find a place.
The laws there, I don't know. If I would be in their position, I would pick Canada way over United States because of all the violence you can see on TV right now. And they're all targeted by other groups like KKK and stuff like that. They will all target immigrants. I don't know. I don't think it's safe for them.
I actually got accepted into a fellowship. It's President Obama's Emerging Global Leaders Initiative. And I came through for the fellowship. It was a one-year fellowship in Washington, D.C., where I served with a nonprofit organization. And after that, I applied for asylum in the United States. It was a transitional period in the United States. And everything seems to have really changed there. And I really did not feel welcomed at all. In fact, I felt scared most of the time. So that was the time when my husband came and we decided that we can no longer live in the United States with the way that things are going. We did come through Roxham Road, and We came in the winter, so it was pretty cold, and you know, we walked, and then we were entering. We saw the border police there, and they stopped us for some time. They spoke with us for a little bit to let us know what to expect after this, and you know, we went ahead. We were at the border for about 12 hours, just doing some process there. But we knew that if you're looking for safety somewhere, you need to do something to get it. You need to go somewhere. You cannot sit and wait for yourself to, you know, safety to come to you. You have to go and seek it. We were very, very scared. We had no idea what to expect. You know, we were saying we could be arrested, you know, especially when we reached the border and they were telling you that if you enter, you will be arrested. You know, at that moment, it's like, it's either do it or don't do it, but, you know, I'm here. So if it takes me to be arrested, okay, you know, because at the end of the day, you are here to get safety. If this is gonna get me to being in a place where I don't feel scared walking in the street anymore, then so be it. You know, we always hear about how Canada's so welcoming and everyone here is very nice, and even people in the United States were saying that no, it's because a lot of people knew what was happening to me in the United States. I've received a few racial attacks there in different cities, and all the people who were close to me who knew this were all saying, no, things are different in Canada. Canadians are very nice. You will not find a lot of racism issues the way you find them here. So that was really the biggest motivation for us to come here, is we just really wanted to feel safe and welcomed somewhere. You know, I'm even staying here, I am day and night very worried about my family, because my family is still all there. My parents, my sisters, my brother, they're all still living there, and it's honestly at this point the country's a sinking ship. It's just waiting for its time to sink. That's it. So it's now at a point where everyone's just frantically running to leave before they're gone. You know, there's a serious tracking of every single person who's ever voiced out and spoken against this. Any injustice, any inequality that you speak about, you don't even have to be an activist. You can just be a regular citizen who is concerned about what's going on in your country, and you speak about it, and you know that you are in risk of getting harassed, you are in risk of possibly even getting killed. We do not have any information. We are supposed to have a court, actually, but we have no idea. It's been 8 months now. We haven't really heard anything. I'm learning French now. This is going to be my 5th language, so I'm very excited. I really love learning languages, so that's one of the main reasons why we're staying in Montreal, is because, you know, it's a new language. It's exciting, and it's quite scary because you don't really know if you're ever going to learn this language. But, you know, I think it's worth a shot, and I also honestly felt very, very welcomed here. I think even though there's a language barrier, we're still able to communicate with people, so I find it really pleasant.
We're in Ottawa, and we're asking people this question. The majority of refugees coming into Canada in 2018 originated from which country?
From Syria? India.
Mexico then.
I'd say India.
Mexico.
India.
Nigeria.
It is Nigeria.
The correct answer is Nigeria. Between January and June 2018, Nigeria was the country of origin for 6,953 new refugee claimants in Canada. But as of June, more than 11,000 Nigerian claims are still pending. Other common home countries for asylum seekers between January and June 2018 include India at 1,801, Colombia at 1,084, Mexico at 1,030, Romania at 1,013, and Haiti at 833. These are just new referrals and do not include those cases processed or pending. Once an asylum seeker is in Canada, alleging persecution or seeking refugee status, the speed of their case can vary. In total, there were 26,059 refugee protection claims in the first half of 2018. 11,769 of those claims were made by irregular border crossers. Canada accepted 7,831 people as a convention refugee or person in need of protection from January to June 2018.
We don't know how the numbers of asylum seekers looking to enter Canada will change this year. Maybe there'll be more, maybe there'll be less. Maybe our laws and policies will change, maybe not. But this issue is changing and challenging our political discourse. So, once again, it's your turn. How do you think asylum seekers crossing the U.S. border is affecting Canadian politics?
From my viewpoint, I think that a lot of the Tories are kind of flaming a lot of the fears and fear-mongering on the subject. I think it is important for us as an immigrant society to look at the rules and how immigrants come to Canada and from the States. But I would say that, I don't think that's our biggest concern on the plate.
I really think the Conservative government is making a little bit more of a big deal than they should be. Of course, they're trying to win the next election, but under 50,000 people in the span of a year isn't that many. They're obviously facing a hard time in the U.S., and as long as they're going through the proper processing, then that's fine by me. We have a really strong history of immigration law, and I think we're doing a fine job with it.
To an extent, I feel like it could be affecting our politics just because we are the upstairs neighbors to the U.S., so it is going to affect us. We do have a lot of trades and involvement with the U.S., so it will affect us.
Same situations as having in Europe right now is happening here. Is that with a lot of immigration, people are anxious about their way of living, and the governments are becoming more right-wing.
I think it's getting Canada and the U.S. a little bit into hot water with each other. Obviously with Canada, we're so welcoming to an extent. It makes us re-evaluate our relationship with the States.
It's been a big deal lately. I think
politicians are using it in their favor and just to be elected, not because their heart is in it. And it's ingenuine.
Okay. And I think it's dividing the country.
Yeah. Can you say that again for me?
I think it's dividing the country.
Well, it seems to be a hot button issue. I see it in the news all the time. People are talking about it. Conservatives, liberals, it's obviously a big issue for a lot of people. I don't know how it affects the average person and their day-to-day. I mean, I can't say that it's affecting me in a way that I've noticed, but all I know is that, it is a big hot button issue with a lot of people right now trying to decide what to do with all of these people.
I feel the same way. I don't know what else could be said.
You think it does have an effect on Canadian politics?
Probably. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more pressure on the Canadian government to do something about it because there's all these people coming in. They need jobs. They need places to live. So obviously there's some pressing matters there. But
I think it's a bit of a lightning rod. I think it's probably a little overblown. But the arrangement we have, this business about being illegal or irregular, is ridiculous. I mean, the fact that you come across at a border crossing or not, if you come in illegally, you should be classified as illegal and go through the same process. I mean, everybody should go through the same process. My parents emigrated here. They went through the same process. It's different, obviously, for them. But, these unfortunate folks who are getting in from the States, it's only a few thousand. We can afford a few extra thousand people. So, it's not that bad.
I think politicians are just ignoring the problem. Trudeau is being the worst. He just ignores it like it's not there anymore. It's a problem that's not happening, and it is a problem.
I just don't like what they provide to them, as opposed to what they're giving to our own citizens. So it seems that they're giving a lot more money towards these people than they're giving to, veterans, people like that.
I hope it won't. But so far, I think the current Canadian government, are a lot welcoming towards refugees that are people from war-torn countries, and I don't see there is any change of attitude since the new government in US, and hopefully it stays like that.
Well, there's always, I think everyone is always afraid of not finding a job because they think people coming in is a competition for them. So there's always this kind of fear of the unknown that can affect people and be closed up and not welcoming as they could be.
It too is becoming more polarized. I've been following some of the opposing sides, North 99, Ontario Proud on Facebook, and we're having a lot of that kind of polarized debate in comments about asylum seekers and the Prime Minister opening the borders to just about everyone that we can't get documentation on. So it's becoming a political, or it has become a political hot potato in Canada as well. And I fear the kind of factions that we're seeing in the United States are also showing up in Canada. So we have politicians playing to those constituencies. Both, I don't want to say left and right, both pro-nationalist and pro-immigrant. And of course, they're not immigrants, they're asylum seekers, some are refugees. So there's also the confusion of language about what to classify them as, and people are not taking the time to really be informed. And I think the government's not doing as good a job as they could to inform people about the process either. They're kind of taking the attitude, we Canadians accept everyone, and not all Canadians do.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. Next week, we'll be exploring how the legalization of marijuana will affect Canada and your community. You can find us on social media or drop us an email at outburst@cpac.ca. We'd love to hear from you. It's your turn to speak, and we're listening. Here's what some of you had to say so far.
Well, I never smoked marijuana, so
for sure it will have an impact on the health of the people in the long term.
It's safer, it's way more controlled, and people can get what's good for them.
It's not about just the legalization and giving it in hands, it's more about how we are going to implement this change.